One, two, three. Hello, overcomers. I'm so happy to be here. Some issues, some problems with technology, but we are faithful to God. So we are doing this Zoom record with Cyndi Barber. Today we have conversation with her about her book. The title is Rising Up. So I'm gonna give you a little introduce about Cyndi. Cyndi Barber, an inner healing professional of 23 years. Cyndi guides people in overcoming trauma. I like that word, overcoming, circumstance and personal limitations to become successful, have meaningful relationships, and become internally whole. Her personal traumas, along with her experience, has given her insight into the human soul that frequently brings instantaneous result in her clients. That's wonderful. So she has a lot of experience. So we will have someone that God has been using for many years. And I'm going to tell you about her book that is called Rising Up. I really like the cover of this book. I think you saw it in the flyer that I posted. So it is about a balloon. Yeah, okay, thank you. Cyndi is showing the, I'm going to put it here. Yeah, she's showing now the cover. That's amazing. So I'm gonna read a little bit about the book, what it's about. In 2010, Cindy's world shattered with a knock on the door. A police office delivered the devastating news of her daughter Connor's fatal car accident. I know her daddy was just 17 by that time. Amidst the pain of loss, she found healing in following God's voice and experiencing his presence. Rising Up, it's Cindy's story and a roadmap for anyone navigating grief from losing a loved one. Within its pages lie to the vulnerability of her journey and lessons learned, plus exercises and activations crafted to foster emotional intimacy with God and facilitate soul restoration. Join Cyndi on a transformative journey from despair to hope. From despair to hope. This is very important. You will find solace, strength, and the courage to rise from grief. It's time to embrace a future illuminated by healing and possibility. Welcome, my dear Cyndi Barber. Hello, how are you today?
Hello, I'm good.
You're doing good. Please introduce yourself. Tell us more about you. We want to know more about that beautiful woman that wrote this book.
Well, you just did introduce me. I'm trying to figure out what to add. Let's see.
What do you like to eat?
Let's see. I have three granddaughters and a grandson that are 6 and younger, to the delight of my life. I also love to garden and flowers, not food. I can't really grow food. Besides that, I can't eat it all. So I grow flowers and plants outside, and I love that, especially this time of year. Um, I like to do things outside, like hiking, camping, water sports, things like that for fun. And I work at Bethel's Transformation Center. That's my full-time job. So I do inner healing and counseling for people. And so I don't know how many people watching this know about Sozo, but I'm a Sozo counselor. I've done Sozo for many years and I got my own healing. My father committed suicide when I was 9. And I didn't realize that I was angry until 20 years later when a man in our town killed himself and all this fury came out for a stranger. And I thought, something's amiss and it has nothing to do with this man. So we were practicing inner healing in our church at the time. And so it was a great opportunity for me to be a guinea pig and find some healing. And I did. And so then I was like, everybody needs this. So I learned some tools, and now that's my full-time job. So I love it. I love seeing people free.
Wow, so powerful. And I think you have a lot of to teach to many people, and we would like to learn more. So you are the author of the book Rising Up. Can you tell me why did you decide that book, that title for your book, and how
Mhm.
was the process of writing this book?
Yeah, well, I've known I was supposed to be a writer for most of my life, but I was afraid and insecure and didn't believe in my own ability. So I struggled with imposter syndrome for a long time. Excuse my cat in the background. He all of a sudden decided to be playful. But anyway, I because I can do inner healing and I know people who can do inner healing, I had lots of work on my insecurities to get to a place of confidence. And so um, I wanted to write about my loss because I wanted to create a resources for other people to also heal from loss. You know, it's believed that if you lose a child, you'll never recover. And I just wasn't willing to accept that because
Mhm.
that's not the model of the gospel. Jesus paid for our full freedom and for healing of all parts of us, body, soul, and spirit. And so, even though I knew it was really difficult and I couldn't imagine how I would ever recover, I reached out to him and let him walk me through it. And because I had done inner healing on other people and I knew how not to do it because of how I did grief, I knew how not to do grief from the loss of my dad and how I had done that. And plus, I've seen other people create really unhealthy coping mechanisms in their lives following trauma and loss. And I knew what not to do, but it was really difficult to face the pain. But the Lord walked me through it. And I knew that the only way to the other side was through it. And so this book is how I did it and the tools I learned. And it's got it's a workbook, so it's a way to have a person going through it to answer questions which force you to face things on the inside, but also exercises to lead you into solutions and then activations to move you forward on each chapter. And it covers all of the elements of grief
Mhm.
so that on the other side, you actually can recover and you actually can have a thriving life on the other side of such incredible loss.
Mm. Yeah, that's my other question. What's something that God revealed to you in the middle of all the pain and all the loss that you suffer? Is there anything special that you say, God revealed this to me and I want to share it? And this is important for people to understand if you are going through a divorce or if your child died or so many things that can happen in this life. Even if you lose the information of your computer from many years, things like that.
Yeah,
That's
right. Really.
also,
Yeah.
yes, that's
I
like a trauma. I have lived that.
For sure. I have too. That's really tough. Um, I think it's that God wants to be in the middle of it with us, that we're not alone. You know, if we grew up in a home where, you know, your deep emotional stuff wasn't safe or, you know, honored, then it can feel like you're on your own in it instead of that God wants to be in the middle of it with you and walk you through it. And that was life changing for me to have him sit with me in the anger and the sadness and all of the questions and knowing he was good but not understanding the whys and how did I end the shock of how is this my story all of a sudden and you know having him be with me in all of those steps and that none of my emotions were off the table, like I could be really angry and he would listen,
Hmm.
and my job was to just have a heart that was open to his process as he led me through it. I
Okay.
think that's just the most powerful thing is not to be afraid of our emotions, but also not to be afraid to bring them to him.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I read a blog that you posted about fear. I love it. It's very, very deep and it really helps us to understand how fear sometimes looks like security, looks like God voice. And this is like, no, it's because I'm being careful of this, of that. So, but in the inside, it's fear. It's because you don't want to take the step of risk. So it's beautiful that you mentioned like not to be afraid, to open your heart to God and to
Yeah,
just being sincere. Is
for
being
sure.
honest with
For
Him.
sure. Yeah. Yes,
Mhm.
I have a website where I've written lots of blogs and stuff on the different dynamics of the human soul. And my heart in that is to facilitate connection with other people, with connection with God and connection within oneself so that, we're not working against ourselves. Then also to grow and to become all that we can be, and then also to overcome difficult things, trauma and loss.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes, my chest is like I don't know, breathing deep. For some reason, every word you say is like to my spirit, and it's special. So thank you for accepting this interview, and thank you everyone that is here. Sarah, Linda, Christine, Casilda, that even though we have these problems with technology, you are here, and that's so important to me too. And just to receive your support, guys. Thank you so much. Okay, I like this part because it's when you can see the author in the real field. So can you please read a fragment of your book, Rising Up? And please show us again the cover because I love the cover.
I'll start with one of the pieces of grief is the shock, the initial shock. And so it says, I don't know how long you want me to read.
1 minute, 2 minutes.
Okay. Okay. Shock from loss feels like you've entered a time warp in an alternate universe. While there are similarities of normalcy around you, so many things have changed. It's disorienting. Everything slows down or speeds up. It feels mechanical, as if you're moving through life strapped to a conveyor belt with no way to escape, propelling you forward or toward a foreboding and unknown destination. Discovering that someone you love has an illness leading to death or experiencing a sudden death shakes up your certainty and creates a new reality where everything has changed. Suddenly, what was routine and expected is lost with them. Each day forward forms a new landscape in which you will live. A couple of days after Courtney died, I remembered looking out the front window of my house at people going about their day in much the same way they had before. I struggled watching normal life happen all around me. Outside my window, little had changed. Inside my house, everything had changed. I couldn't believe how the two realities could coexist. Part of me was angry that all those people in the outside world weren't so transformed by my loss. Emotionally poleaxed by the sudden death of my daughter, I was overwhelmed by being forced to let go of having life ordered the way that I had become accustomed. It seemed as if someone had picked up my house and shaken it violently before setting it back down and leaving me to live with things in the wrong places. Fearful thoughts whispered that something more could be taken at any moment.
Oh, wow. I think this book is very important to be translated into Spanish. I don't know if you have been thinking about this, but yeah, I think this is a topic that a lot of people need to, read about it because it's something that many times you don't share because it's something very private. It's your suffer, it's your grief, it's a lot of emotions that you don't want to share because it's very painful. So thank you so much for sharing your heart and really please translate it to Spanish.
Yeah. Also, people around us don't know how to handle it well either. So sometimes our pain isn't safe. Like, I remember somebody telling me after she died, it was just maybe weeks after she died. And I lived in a really small town where everybody knows everybody. And so I couldn't go anywhere that somebody wasn't there looking at me pathetically, waiting for me to fall apart. I felt like I was in a fishbowl. And I remember somebody telling me to encourage me. I know exactly how you feel. I was so devastated when I lost my cat. I'm like, Really? I mean, I love my pets. I love them like family, and I cry when I lose one, and it's devastating. But that's just not encouraging to somebody who just lost a family member, you know? And so knowing what to say, what not to say when you're with somebody who's grieving, you know, this book is also helpful for that, you know, to how to minister to people who are going through it, understand what they're going through, and to be able to be supportive in it and patient. Because grief always takes longer than we wish it did to heal from it.
I think that's about empathy. Empathy.
Yeah.
So, hey guys, that you are connected. If you have any question, please put it in the chat. We will read the question for the author, Cyndi Barber. So Cyndi, can you share a testimony about someone that already read your book and they share with you what they experienced?
Yeah. Well, the way that I forced myself to write this book was that I decided I was going to do a support group for grief and loss. And so I told my bosses at the Transformation Center that I was going to do a grief support group and have an accompanying workbook. Hadn't written a word. And so we had people pay to join this support group, which means that I had to have material for them each week. And so that's how I actually followed through on my desire to write it. Was I'm going to have to meet with these people and I have to have something to give them. And so I had 7 people in that first support group, which I'm so grateful for because I could flesh it out with them, and each one of them was touched and was able to work through some things. And one of them was so excited that she bought a whole bunch of books to hand out to everybody she knew. And then there's a church that I know of that is walking people through it. They keep buying copies to take people through. So that's encouraging that it's a resource that actually helps people, that it's not just me telling my story. Because that's my heart. I wanted to actually help people get through loss.
Beautiful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
What are your next plans? Do you want to write a new book to publish? Are you thinking about something else? What are your next plans?
Yeah,
Tell
I
us.
do. I'm working on one for divorce because I went through
Mhm.
the breakup of my 30-year marriage too, a couple of years after I lost Courtney, and so had to go through grief all over again, but in a new way. And so I want to write another workbook for people who have experienced divorce.
Very important topic too.
Yes, yes. It's a little scarier in the church to write something like that, you know, and Courtney has passed, and so writing about her, you know, she's not here, but my ex-husband is here. So I'm a little more challenged by that one. So
All right. Yes.
yeah, pray for me. I want to be honoring to him, but also be authentic. So yeah, that's a challenge.
Okay. Okay. Where can people find your books? So tell us where, if it is
Amazon.
Amazon.
It's called Rising Up, Healing from Grief Workbook. Here,
Yeah.
Healing from Loss.
Can
I
you
don't even
show
know the
us?
title of my book.
Show us
Rising Up, Healing from Loss Workbook by Cyndi Barber, Cyndi Barber,
Can you
like
show
Barbara
us
Pop.
again the book, please? The cover?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Rising Up, Healing from Loss Workbook. Thank you.
You're welcome.
See, so we have a question here. Have you found writing your book brought you healing? Christine Tracy is asking.
Hi, Christine. I know her. Yes. I think, I mean, I had done a lot of healing by the time I wrote this because Courtney died 15 years ago and I wrote this last year. So a lot of time had passed, and so, but talking about it again and getting it all on paper and looking at it in black and white and bringing my emotions to the table, you know, helped me to just, I think, strengthen the healing that I already had.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes, I
I mean,
agree.
it's a subject that's not like, woohoo, let's write about the most painful thing in my life, you know, like I wouldn't say it was quite that, but yeah, the process of doing it did, like, is that in there healed? Is there still places in me that need touched? You know, God, if there is, I invite you into those places because I want to be whole.
Yeah.
I don't want to just act like I'm whole or think that I'm whole or deceive myself. Like I thought when my dad died, I kind of thought I was fine until I wasn't. So I
Mm.
really wanted to be truly whole. So it
Yes.
was good to have it all fleshed out and look in every nook and cranny and find out.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I think the same happened with my book. Like I already did a lot of healing, but writing it helps you a lot to remember all these things and realize God was faithful, even in that moment of a lot of pain and suffer. God was there, like protecting you, hugging you, consoling
Yeah,
through the Holy Spirit. So you go to more details because in normal life we are like living, living, living. But when you sit down and write, you can think more detail.
correct. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so we have 10 minutes. Is there any other question, girls, that you want to ask to our friend Cyndi? Okay, Cyndi, I I don't know if you have any questions for my book.
I am curious. Like you had to put your own emotions out on the line too in your story. It's so vulnerable. That's what I learned about myself is just it's really vulnerable to put out there. Here's the most difficult things I've been through, and now everybody out there gets to have an opinion of it. That's how it felt anyway. So, how did you personally deal with the vulnerability of writing your story?
It's so interesting that you are using that word vulnerability, and that's the word that Christine put here for you. She said, Cyndi, thank you for writing this book. I think so many people are being healed through it. Your vulnerability is brave.
Oh, thanks, Chris.
So I think sometimes people in Colombia, especially, I think they try to use all the traumas about the war that we live here, the conflict that we have lived here in Colombia, and sometimes they use it for like earning money. Like some
Mm,
neighborhoods, they were very violent, and now they use that history to bring tourists and tell them about all these kind of characters that did a lot of danger. But when we have Jesus, I think our focus is not to just that people say, oh, poor of you, no, but that they receive also the message of forgiveness, the message of resilience. So I think that's what is important in my book, that I'm not narrating my story just to, oh, this is very sad, poor Camila, but that they receive like an injection of faith in Jesus, that how powerful he is, how he can protect you, how he can just take you to places that you never imagined, even if you live in a poor neighborhood, even if you grew up in a garbage dump, in my case. So this is the title of my book, Fleeing to
yeah.
Overcome. So some of you already know it. I know Linda and Christine already read it. And so that's the thing. I think the message is so important. And Linda, so you have a question. Go ahead, Linda.
So I had a lot of questions and you kept talking. So I wanted to ask Cyndi, have you written the book on divorce yet? Or is
I'm
this
working
first
on
one about grief? Okay, good. So if you need to
the
interview somebody
process.
that was married to a narcissist for 50 years and tried two different sets of kids 20 years apart and spent 2 years grieving the loss of that in my marriage and finally getting a divorce through all of that and having to grieve that again. Like everything you said, both about the grief and the loss, whether it's from a child or from a marriage or yeah, that's a long time, you know.
Mhm. For
It's
sure,
not,
it
it's not
is.
like a
Yeah,
cat, it's not like a dog. I mean, yeah, those things you grieve about, you get through
for
it.
sure.
And that's what your journey is about. You're not going to get through this life without difficulty. And so staying in the Bible and reading the stories, and I just happen to like The Chosen. I know it can be controversial, but Camilla and Ramon, when they came to Florida, they watched it with me, and we looked forward to each episode, and it was nice because it was in so many different languages. So yes, you're not in Spanish at this point.
No, but Camila's connected me to somebody who can do
An
that for me.
interpreter, yeah, she's
Yeah.
good. She's very good. She really did a good job. I was very impressed with Camilla's book because I'd known her for like 4 seasons, you know. I didn't know her, you know, it was just a couple of weeks, you know, but it seemed like months because we did so much in that time. And, you
Oh,
know, I didn't know what I was facing the first time. And then she was so helpful and guided me along. And then the next time I came, she looked for me. And then the next time we were friends by then. And then COVID happened. And then, you know, I got to see her recently in January and I was able to, you know, heal some old wounds and tell somebody because I didn't want to share that shame. I didn't want to share the things. And then other things were coming at me like crazy, like the enemy just wanted to rip me a new one, you know. But yeah, he put a lot of very good people in my path and you know, going to Columbia and getting intensive training and reading books. Man, I read so many books on divorce and you know, the church and what you should do. So, yeah, I'd love to read something like that or if you want to interview somebody or that's always cool to do because women are looking for stuff like that, you know. I bought everything up I could to
yeah, in a lot of
get
ways,
my arsenal good.
divorce is more complicated than.
And I lost my dog that was 20 years old.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, during that whole process, it was like, wow, yeah, you can get real discouraged real fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Linda, for your comments.
Yeah, mute me.
I have to mute now. So, and any other thing that you want to share, Cyndi, to just, you know, to say to people to finish this?
You asked me about the why I chose the balloon and why I chose Rising Up. It's because I wanted it to be hopeful. I wanted people to look at it and feel hope.
Mm,
So balloon rising is hopeful, and rising up the words are hopeful, and it's blue skies. So I
yeah.
didn't want it to be a downer, a bummer. I want it to be like, yeah, this is really hard, but hey, there's good things on the other side.
Christ, the hope of glory. That's one
That's
of
right.
my favorite verses, and it's also in my song Fullness. Christ, the hope of glory.
Nice.
Okay, thank you, Cyndi, for accepting this interview. And
Yeah,
thank you,
thank you for
everyone,
asking.
for joining us. We see you next time.